Hello and welcome to Tea with a Therapist, Session 10. My name is Phil Naylor. I am a psychotherapist and this is my tea. I hope that you get some tea yourself and join me for this is my weekly little chat. That is my outreach to people about mental health and wellness and bringing that into the world, because I think there is a lot of lack of understanding about mental health and wellness and about ourselves and how we work. So these are little weekly sessions that I present on topics of interest to do with mental health and wellness, personal development, things like that. And also talking about a little bit about our psychology and how we work. So all things psychological. So today's topic is change. And just before I get into the topic, just a reminder that although I'm a therapist, this isn't psychotherapy. This is just information and education that I hope that you enjoy. And I don't represent the opinions of all psychotherapists or as the field of psychotherapy. This is my opinion as a person who has been in this field for quite a long time. And so some of it is traditional stuff that most people, therapists know, and other are as my synthesis of an interpretation of what I've learned and through this field and with working with people for a very long time. Anyway, today is March 10th. We just had daylight savings time changeover last night, so things are going to be a little bit lighter at night, an hour lighter later. And that month of March in general is a time of change. It's a transition month, at least where I am here in Canada, Southern Ontario. Lots of flux coming and going. And we've got weather change happening right now. It's windy. I had a relatively warm air mass move in. Everybody's happy about that because, the snow's going to melt. But if you look at March overall, it's kind of a mixed bag. It kind of goes up and down. It's a few warm days and everybody's yay, spring's coming, and then and it gets cold again and something is so I think of March as kind of being a good reflection of how change works in general for us and what change and transition is like. We're changing from one season to the next. And sometimes we have elements of both seasons in there, elements of winter, elements of spring, and it's also kind of a wild ride. And even though we generally are saying, yay, spring is coming, and we're anticipating this new spring, there's part of us that is a little bit hesitant too. It's like, oh, what does that mean? That means I have to start getting up the gardening stuff, and I have to think about cutting the lawns, and I have to clean the house, and I got to change my wardrobe and there's new things, there's more expectations or whatever. So even though we may be anticipating this good new season, we kind of know how to do winter at this point, and we're kind of in our modality. And even though we may not be enjoying it, we know how to do it. And so that is the way of change in general, is that we both anticipate it and we hesitate about it. So there might be, there's different types of changes. We'll get into that. The changes that you want, you anticipate and move and are, anticipating those. But there's elements of hesitancy of those, and changes that we don't want. There may be a lot of resistance and not a lot of anticipation going on. But generally, we have little changes throughout our life and even through the day. Change is kind of normal, or it is normal. It is the one thing that we can predict is change. Nothing stays the same and nothing's static. However, psychologically, we kind of like things the way they are. We like to kind of stay in our routines. Because we know how to do those things. Even when we're working with people with trying to change, they're in a very painful place and they want to get out of that. So they want positive change in their life. They want to say, I'm living this miserable life and I'm depressed and I'm anxious and I want that change. Or they're in this terrible relationship. Even then, when we're in a lot of pain, there's still a tendency to resist that movement forward. And it's because even though we can think there might be something positive on the other end, we don't really know. It's hard for us to imagine something that we don't know. Not to imagine completely. We can imagine certain aspects of it, but there's always the unknown. And so we stay in situations, physical situations like a job, a relationship, a place to live, and also in mental situations like depression and anxiety and other forms of mental challenge, because we know it. We know what this is, and it's comfortable on some level in that we can predict it. It's familiar. And so what we don't know is what's the unfamiliar. So part of our minds say, well, this is bad, but what if it's worse doing this other thing? What if we end up in even a worse situation? Or maybe there'd be higher expectations of me, or maybe I'm going to have to, I don't know certain skills or abilities, or like if you're transitioning into a new job, what if I don't know how to do everything I need to know on that job? And what if I fail at that? So there's all these hesitancies that are built in to even a positive change. And so that's part of what we need to work with and overcome when working with people, even with mental health challenges, and moving forward out of being in a negative place and into a positive place. But it's just the way of it. If you think of all change, so you want to go on a trip, you're all excited about a trip, and so, but it's in some foreign place that you've never been to before, you don't know anybody, and maybe there's a language that you don't speak, and so there's a little bit of hesitant, how am I going to get around? And also, you may be really looking forward to the trip, but there's aspects of it that you really don't like. You might not like the organizing of it, having to book all the tickets, having to pack, having to make all the arrangements for the airport, even going to the airport, being in the airport, like all going through customs, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't like this part. So there's even parts of positive change that we don't like, even if the end result in the end is what we do want, and that it's kind of worth it to us having gone through those things. So now those are the changes that we like, and the changes that we don't like that are thrust upon us. This thing happens. I mean, that's even more difficult. We think that, oh, things are going to just go from bad to worse. This is a terrible thing. And it's harder for us to adjust to that change because we don't see the positive outcome of that. However, there usually is on some level. Many of us have experience of going through some terrible experience. You lose a job or a relationship or something. And at the time, it was miserable. But looking back, sometimes you say, but that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. If it wasn't for that thing happening, these other things wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't be where I am now. So we learn and grow through change and challenge. Just looking, what else did I write about notes? Oh, there's that old saying too. Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. Because there's that element of unpredictability. So we have this vision of positive things, but there's also this sort of sideline of other challenges that happen. And sometimes the other challenges, even on something positive that we're looking forward to, are bigger and more significant than what we thought. And so now we are in a bigger time of challenge. And I guess through all of our experience of change, because we have constantly gone through change, all of us have gone through change after change, one thing that we can reassure us of is that we kind of know how to do it. But our experiences probably tell us there's positives and there's negatives about all different changes. And hopefully the negatives or the positives will outweigh the negatives. And change isn't always a painful experience. And even the painful experiences, if we kind of keep the right perspective, that there's always the positive side of things that we never anticipated. Change can involve periods of disorientation and overwhelm. And so that's another reason people sometimes during the process of change, it's uncomfortable, and then they tend to resist it. I don't want this thing. It's uncomfortable. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to do this. And So it can be stressful. Change is often stressful, and it may cause us to have to stretch our abilities and to master new skills and tasks and techniques. And it always involves these uncertain things that we may encounter. So I've just kind of just want to write down a few points about managing change and what are helpful things to keep in mind to help us get successfully through change, or as successfully as possible. One is that know that change is a process. Okay, it doesn't tend to happen instantly. Even things that happen suddenly, there's an unfolding process that happens afterwards, and that we know that we don't get to the other side instantly. We don't get to our comfort level, to the new normal, where now we've reestablished our equilibrium, and now this is the new normal, and then we get comfortable with that, and then resist the next change that comes along. So that we know that it's a process, and it will take some time to get through. So if you kind of know that from the get-go and know that's the deal, and you just kind of have a little bit of more patience and acceptance with that, and kind of an ability to kind of go through the flow and know that we will get through to the other side. Know and accept change isn't a straight line, and that it can involve unpredictability and as well as setbacks. So just giving the season change analogy, for example, again, we can have this beautiful spring weather and everybody's, wow, spring's here and isn't this amazing? Now we're in it now, this winter's gone. And then we get a big snowstorm comes in, or a big cold front, and then we get this dump and it's cold and we're back in it again, and it's like, oh, I thought we were out of this and we're back in it again, and this is never going to change, and like we're stuck. We're stuck in winter. We'll never get out of it. So that's how change often happens too, is that we take a step forward. There's the old expression, 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, is that we kind of always kind of regress a little bit. There's often an aspect of regression. So the season regresses back. We make progress, and then we get a setback. So setbacks are, expect them. I always say change is kind of like the stock market. So if you buy a stock and you watch it every day, you're going to have real ups and downs and highs and lows, because it'll be, oh, look at my stock is going up, I'm making money. Oh, it's going up again today, it's making money. And oh, my stock is dropping. Oh, it's going down. It's going down more. Oh, and now I'm going to lose. Now I'm losing money. Now what do I do? Oh, it's up again. It's up again. The next day, oh, it's down. It's up. It's down. So if you're watching your stock every day, it's kind of doing this thing, and it's hard to know what to do. Do I sell? Do I buy? Your whole state of mind is being driven by if your stock is doing well or is not doing well. So that's how you, unless you're doing a typical type of training, but generally what you want to do is to kind of buy your stock and only check in on it periodically, because what you're looking for is the trend line. So is it generally trending up, or is it generally trending down? Because if you look at the individual days, they're going to be like this. Okay, and when we look at ourselves and our change process, we're going to be like this. I've had a good day, or I've got a bad day. A good day, bad day, or I've got a bad more, going down into a bad period, and going up into a great period. So you want to sort of see where the general trend is heading. Okay, so you have to have a bit of patience with that. So expect that variability. Third, keep an eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. So there's always where you're heading in general. Don't look at, again, like looking at the individual ups and downs. You keep your focus on the end result, on your goal. And that's hard to do sometimes when we get lost in the process, lost in the trees of things. But you have to periodically say, this is where I'm heading, this is where I'm going. Keep focused on that. Don't get distracted by these other little things that come up, and just keep going. Just keep moving ahead. So keep your eye on the ball. Keep a positive vision of where you're heading. This is especially when we're doing psychological changes, that we're trying to change ourselves. Make sure that you're always looking at what your goal is, where you're heading to, and keep a positive vision of where you want to be. And then you don't get lost in all of these little setbacks. And that helps you to be persistent, which I guess that was further down my list, but I'll talk about that. Persistence and perseverance is very important. You keep putting one foot in front of the other. So you have a little setback, keep moving forward, keep remembering your goal, keep moving towards what you want. And most writers on success, like people that talk about personal success and all that, will talk about this, that perseverance is hugely important. They put a much higher value on perseverance than on personal talent or skills and luck. That people that are successful in whatever field, you'll find out that they kept being persistent. They had a lot of failures, a lot of setbacks before they finally pushed through to their success, finally pushed through and achieved their goal and end result. And whereas a lot of people that may be even more talented may give up and not get there because they didn't allow themselves to fully persist through that, through the challenging periods. Trust in your ability to manage. So as I mentioned before, we've all been through a lot of change, a lot of transition. We've had lots of change. You know how to do it. You ultimately know how to do it. And trust in your ability to be able to manage these things. That often you'll find that you don't think that you have the ability to cope with this next thing that's coming, or you don't know how you're going to kind of manage this change. But somehow, you know, we always find the resources that we need when we need them. Not before, but just as we need them. Sort of a just-in-time thing, that when it's required of us, the skills are there. So trust in your ability to manage change, and that you learn new skills too, that you have the ability to learn the skills that you need to manage through the change. And so if you're starting a new job, trust that, you know, I'm going to be able to pick up all the things I need to pick up. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to pick it up immediately. Again, that's a process again, right? But you learn to pick it up over time, sometimes very quickly, sometimes a longer period of time. But we always learn and figure it out. Also, accept that you're not fully in control at any time. That's another thing that makes us anxious, that during times of change and transition, we're not in control, not fully. We have a lot of control over things, more control than sometimes it feels, because we can control our perceptions, we can control our reactions, we can control our thought processes. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but we actually can. So, but on the other hand, the world throws things at us that we didn't expect it. We weren't expecting, you know, something, we lost a job, or a loved one died, or get an illness, or who knows what happens. So some change, something from the universe comes at us, and we had no thought of that happening and no idea of our ability to control that, or that we didn't wish for that to come. And so we're not always in control. But we have to, I've come to look at things like kind of our ability, and I talked about this in, mentioned about locus of control, where we feel our power is. Are we more in control of our situation and our outcome, or is the world more in control? Is the stuff that the world throws at us, you know, we're kind of powerless over that, and we're just like a leaf in the wind and can't control it? Or do we feel like no matter what the world throws at us, you know, we can manage that? So having that internal locus of control is important. But I've also learned that to kind of look at things like life is a dance, and sometimes, and the world is your partner. And sometimes if you're dancing with a partner, sometimes you're in the lead and you're sort of leading the dance, and sometimes the partner's in the dance. But you have to be working together in harmony. If one is trying to take the lead and the other isn't, then you get that conflict and stress, and it's not working. And so sometimes you have to let the world take the lead. That, yeah, this thing's happening, and I got to cope with it. And I'm just going to kind of accept that the world is in charge in terms of the things that are happening right now, and I'm just going to kind of work with that, and I'm going to apply my skills and manage that. And sometimes we're in the lead in that we initiate a change. We decide I'm going to do this. I'm going to go get a new job. I'm going to make a change. And so we're in the lead and we take that. But even when we initiate that change and make a difference in the world still has something to say, and we still have to manage the little bits that the world throws at us. So, but if we kind of have sort of that going with the flow, just accepting what the world has to offer in this change, and that the next point I was going to make flows onto that is trust in the world too. Trust in the world that everything is unfolding as it should, and that often things, just like I said, that even a bad thing that happens in retrospect, it makes sense in our lives, and other positive things couldn't have happened if that thing didn't happen. So sometimes we need to learn a new skill set. Sometimes we need to consolidate our wisdom and knowledge, and that only happens through a challenge that comes upon us. And so trust that the world knows what it's doing too, that there's a purpose. I mean, that might be a little bit airy-fairy for people, but I believe that, the world is unfolding as it should. So you trust in your own abilities to manage, you trust in your skill set, you trust that the process is ultimately beneficial in some way, and that there'll be benefits that you may not realize right away, that there may be something that later on you realize was necessary, okay? And know that change is ultimately good for us. Have that perspective. Ultimately, we develop something out of it. We may develop knowledge, skills, wisdom. It's necessary for our growth. All change is necessary for our growth. If we just stayed in our comfort zone, we wouldn't grow. We just become stagnant. It's like a moving stream versus sort of a puddle of water that just sits there. It just kind of gets algae and yucky stuff in it. We need the cleansing power of the flowing stream and the unpredictability of that. So all change is required for us. It's actually necessary and part of our ability to move forward. And knowing that when all things are going to change, ultimately that gives you some sense of hope, because you just can't stay stuck in a bad situation forever either. So that too will change. So if we always have sort of a positive view of the ultimate outcome of change, that we benefit from it, we gain from it, this is part of life and how we grow and become who we are, and we develop our skill sets through change. And finally, don't resist change. It's that accepting what is. It's when this is all the kind of mindfulness and Eckhart Tolle stuff about if you resist what is, that's what really creates the pain. So if we come from a place of acceptance, that we don't say this shouldn't be happening, it should not happen, never happen, it's wrong to be happening, that's what is fundamentally creating more pain than the actual thing. If we resist, what is, because, it's true. Whatever's happening is happening now, and that's the truth of the matter. And if we just judge it and resist it, that is going to just cause more pain and more setback than if we just kind of accept that change, accept what is, and we embrace and accept what is. And that very place of acceptance is a very important attitude. And that's one of the best ways to help us to easily and effectively and efficiently get through change as possible. So use our skill sets, know that it is ultimately benefiting us to change. Ultimately, we're learning something through change, or it's a necessary part of what's happening in our life. We don't grow without change. and that if we come from a place of acceptance that it's required for this to happen right now, if you have that philosophy that whatever's happening is required to happen right now, and I'm going to do the best I can with this, I won't resist it. That is your best bet for getting through change as easily, as painlessly, as effectively and efficiently as possible. So accept all change. What is, the spring is going to get here, no matter what March is like with, its unpredictability, warm and spring-like one day and cold and winter-like the next. The winter's days are numbered, and there may be a brief forays of that going backwards, but ultimately the world moves forward, the seasons change, and we are moving into spring, like it or not, ready or not, here it comes, and it will be here, you can guarantee it. So we will get to the other side. Don't worry, you're never always in a constant state of flux and change. You'll get to the other side. So hang in there with your changes, enjoy the changes, know that you're going to benefit from your changes. Keep your eye on the ball. If you're initiating that change and want the positive change, it will come. Be persistent and you'll get there. So just I'm signing off now, but you may want to take your drink of tea, watch this again, and enjoy taking out of it what is going to be beneficial for you. So until next week, I thank you, and if you like this video, forward it on, tell your friends, whatever. Or give me a like or give me a comment so that I know what's working, what's not working, or what you'd like to hear more of. Okay, so until next week, I'm Phil Naylor, and thank you for joining me. Take care. Have a great week.